Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Let's see, make sure it's working. Yeah. Oops. Okay. Alrighty. Jaya Radhamadhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radhamadhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janabalaba Giri Baradhari Gopi Janabalaba Giri Baradhari Giri Baradhari Yasodanandana Vrajajana Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Hurad Umadava Kunya Bihare Jai Radha Madhova Kunya Bihare Gopijana Malaba Giri Varadhari Gopijana Balaba Giri Varadhari Yasodanandana Praja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Praja Janaranjana Yamuna Tera Padachare Yamuna Tera Padachare Jai Hurad Umadava Kunyabihade Jai Radhamadhova Kunjabihati Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravaticharya also His Divine Grace Abhaya Chananada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Jai ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Jai Anantakoti Vaishnavavrinda Gijai Namacharya Shidoridas Thakur Gijai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Gijai Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Sai Makunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Gijai Vrindavanam Gijai Maturanam Gijai Jagannath Swami Gijai Yamunamai Gijai Shimali Lasi Devi Gajai, Samaveda Bhakta, Vrinda Gajai, Gaur Premananda, Hari Hari Bo. All glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale. Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pashatate Shatari. We are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 41st chapter, text 44. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tayor Asanam Aniya Pajang Chargya Haradibi Pujam Sanugayosh Chakre Shrak Tambula Nulepanai Horora Sanam Aniga Pajam Chargyara Nadipi Pujam Sanugayosh Chakre Shaktambulanu Lepanai Toyorasanamaniya Pajam Chargyahanadipi Pujang Sanugayosh Chakre Shaktambulanu Lepanai Toyorasanamaniya Pajang Chargyahanadipi Pujam Sanugayosh Chakre Shaktambulanule. Okay. All right. Taiho for them. Asanam seats. Aniya bringing. Padyam water to wash the feet. Cha and Argya with water to wash the hands. Arhana presents. Adipi and so on. Pujam worship. Sa anugayoho of the two together with their companions. Chakre he performed. Shrak with garlands. Tambula a betel nut preparation. An. Anule panai and sandalwood paste. So translation, after offering them seats and bathing their feet, Sudama worshiped them and their companions with argya garlands on sandalwood paste and other presentations. You can repeat. After offering them seats and bathing their feet, Sudama worshiped them and their companions with argya garlands, pond sandalwood paste, and other presentations. So there's no commentary purport by the followers of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, so we'll just read Jiva Goswami's commentary. Argya refers to the mixture of 8 auspicious items: fragrant oil, flowers, unbroken barley corns, husk barley corns, the tips of kusha grass, sesame seeds, mustard seeds, and durva grass. Arhana refers to other items offered during worship, such as incense, lamps, and food. The word uri indicates offering chamra, fan, and arti. Though he offered all these items, he offered worship again using garlands, betel nut, and sandalwood. So because this is, as far as I'm concerned, it's very just explanatory of what was happening. We'll go on to the next text, which actually has something to comment on. So text 45, I'll just read this. Prahana sardakam janma pavitam chakulam prabho pitri devarshayo mayam tushtai ayagamane navam. Translation is, Sudama said, "O my Lord," or "O Lord, my birth is now sanctified and my family free of contamination. Now that you have both come here, my forefathers, the demigods and the great sages, are certainly all satisfied with me." So Jiva Goswami has a commentary here. Okay, let's read his commentary. Then Sudam began praising him with devotion. His voice choked because of prema. He spoke excellently. He speaks in the plural, not to indicate his great respect for Krishna's coming there, or to indicate his family members, by your coming, just by your touching the objects of my house, the Pitris and Devatas are satisfied. What to speak of seeing you directly? My life has become successful by your coming and directly seeing the two of you. All ancestors and relatives past and future have been delivered since the Pitris are satisfied, all duties are fulfilled. The word he indicates there is proof. Akrura will later say, and here's some Sanskrit, Adyeshanova Satya Kalu Bhuri Bhagaya Sarvadeva Triputa Rideva Murti Yatpada Shocha Shalilam Sri Jagat Punati Satwam Jagado Kurur Adhoksajaya Pravishta. Today, O Lord, my home has become most fortunate because you have entered it as the supreme truth. You embody the forefathers, ordinary creatures, human beings, and demigods in the water that has washed your feet, purifies the three worlds. Indeed, O transcendent one, you are the spiritual master of the universe, and that's 10th canto, 48th chapter, text 5. The reason for all this is that Krishna was the supreme Lord, Prabhu. So, Om Gana Timidandasha Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmiritam Yena Tasmai Shigurve Namaha. So reading this about how all the demigods as forefathers and all living entities become liberated or benefited, not necessarily liberated. It reminds me of a verse in the 11th canto, 5th chapter, text 41, which I'm going to read right now. The famous verse, which Prabhupada oftentimes quoted, and which we as devotees quote to actually convince people to renounce everything and join the Hare Krishna movement. Because sometimes we do it a little inappropriately and we burn people out in the process. And I can think of several examples of how that happens. Anyway, with the Radha Damodar party, but so I'm not going to tell stories about that. So this verse goes as follows. Devarshi bhutaptan rinam pitrinem nakinkoronayam rinicha rajam sarvatmanam yasharanam shatanjam gato mukundam paridricha kartum. And the translation, and this translation is actually by Prabhupada, because even though Prabhupada didn't get up to the 11th canto in the Srimad Bhagavatam, this verse is quoted. It's easier if you use the Tulsi plant to do that. Anyway, so this verse is quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Prabhupada writes a purport to this verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the translation that Prabhupada gave is one who has given up all material duties and taken full shelter at the lotus feet of Mukunda, who gives shelter to all, is not indebted to the demigods, great sages, ordinary living beings, relatives, friends, mankind, or even his forefathers who have passed away. And here's Prabhupada's purport. It is said, Adhyapanam Brahma Yagyapatri Yagyastu Tarpanam Homo Daivo Balir Moto Read Yagyo Titi Pujanam. By offering oblations with ghee, one satisfies the demigods. By studying the Vedas, one performs the Brahma Yagna, which satisfies the great sages. By offering oblations of water before one's forefathers, one performs Pitri Yagna. By offering tribute, one performs Bhuta Yagna. By properly receiving guests, one performs Nri Yagna. These are the 5 yagnas that liquidate the 5 kinds of indebtedness to the demigods, great sages, forefathers, living entities, and common men. It's enough to just like say, oh my God, too many responsibilities for me. I just want to be simple and chant Hare Krishna, isn't it? Whew, all these different sacrifices. Oh my God. I like the KISS philosophy. Keep it simple, sadhu. Anyway, therefore, one has to perform these 5 kinds. One has to perform these 5 kinds of yagnas. But when one takes to the Sankirtan yajna, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, one does not have to perform any other yajna. Pretty cool. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni made a statement about the systematic performance of Bhagavad Dharma in connection with statements previously made by the 9 Yogendras before Maharaj Nimi. The sage Karabhajana Rishi explained the 4 incarnations of the 4 yugas, and at the end, in this verse, text 141, he explained the position of Krishna's pure devotee and how he is absolved of all debts. And I'm going to tell an interesting story from the Mahabharata that illustrates this particular point. And this is one of my favorite stories. This is a story of a great sage named Jarat Karu. Some of you may have heard this story before because I've told it before. So Jarat Karu was such a great sage that he fasted not only on Ekadashi, but every day. He was a brahmachari, really Khanda brahmachari, Naishtigi brahmachari. He was just like fixed in his vow. I'm not going to have anything to do with this material world. I mean, he wasn't a pure devotee engaged in so much in devotional service, but he was, really determined to get liberation. So very austere. So he's going, practically dressed with nothing or the wind, going through the forest, just like, oh, I'm so happy, no responsibilities. Life is so easy. And so he comes across, there's a big pit or in the ground. It goes very, very deep. And there's a bunch of old people hanging upside down from a rope. I guess that's the ropes around their feet or legs or ankles or something. So they're hanging upside down. And there's a rat or several rats that are eating eating the rope. So it's just a question, gradually the different strands of the rope start to get broken. Rats can eat anything, cockroaches, rats, as we've experienced. So he comes and says, oh, what can I do for you? My dear old people, I guess he didn't have the strength to just grab him and do that. It's a story to illustrate something. Sometimes these stories, there's a little bit of hyperbole and stuff like that. And anyway, so it's illustrating a particular point about the debts that one has to the forefathers. So he said, why are you suffering like this? What has happened? And they explain that our descendant, they didn't mention the descendant's name at this particular juncture, our descendant is not performing, pinda. He's not acting properly as a putra, because the word putra means son, of course. Putri means daughter. So that means someone who saves the parents or one's ancestors or whatever from put. Put means hell, in case you haven't guessed. So he says, they say, he's not being responsible. He never got married. And Jarikaru says to them, who was that person? What's his name? Maybe I'll go speak to him. I'll preach to him. And then they say, well, his name is Jarikaru. And then the sage goes, oh my God, I should have never asked that question. And so he says, I'm Jarikaru. And then he thinks, oh my God, I'm going to get married and have all these responsibilities and have to do that. All right, it's my responsibility. I have to perform the debts to my forefathers like that. So what he does, he just announces somehow or other in a very loud voice in the forest, I guess to whoever. He says, I will get married, but only if there is a girl by the same name. To put a lot of restrictions. Only if there's a girl by the same name, and only if she never disagrees with me or causes me any grief. Okay, so usually if someone does that, they'll never get married, right? So he's going around thinking, this, I got it made, at least I agreed to get married, but I put so many conditions on it that it won't happen. Just like the demons sometimes, they want immortality and they put so many conditions on it, they're thinking they're going to be immortal, conditions on death, like Hiranyakashipu or Sunda and Upasunda's story. So he's chanting, maybe not Hare Krishna, probably just Om, 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 Om. He's oming his way through the forest. And then uh, after some time, it gets a little old. So he says, all right, one last opportunity. If it's any girl named Jarat Karu, actually it's pronounced a little differently. There's the Jarat Karu or Jarat Karu. Yeah, it's actually different for the female. It's interesting. So the A is, the emphasis on the A is different. So on a different A. So he says, if there's a girl named, this is your last opportunity. Otherwise, I'm going to remain brahmachari. And so this, one of the Nagas, Vasuki, is very concerned. This is an interesting story in the Mahabharata. Is actually very concerned because all the Nagas are going to die. Why are they going to die? Because you have this Maharaj Janamajaya. Maharaj Janamajaya is the son of Parikshit Maharaj. And Parikshit Maharaj, as we know, was killed by the bite of the snake bird, Takshika. So Janamajaya wants to get rid of all the snakes. It's just like nowadays, sometimes people think you'll get rid of all the mosquitoes and all the bugs and everything like that, but it creates an imbalance in society because they actually, each one of these animals is part of the, is part of God's balance, the eco structure, whatever it is, that keeps everybody else going. I mean, we're interdependent. There's an interdependency between all the living entities, the bugs, the rats, even the rats, the snakes and everything like that. Because if we didn't have snakes, we'd have rats around. So of course we try to get rid of these living entities by what? Insecticides, and it creates an imbalance. So anyway, Maharaj Janmajaya is performing the Sarpa Yajna. And basically, Pasuki wants to figure out a way to stop the Sarpa Yajna. Or he knows it's going to happen. It hasn't happened yet in this particular juncture. And he has a sister named Jarat Karu, fortunately. So Jarat Karu, so Vasuki comes forward and says to Jarat Karu, the sage, that I have a sister. And her name is Jarat Karu. And Jarat Karu says, oh my God, I almost made it. Almost made it here. So then what happens is that that she comes forward and he says, I'm going to get married to her, to you, to her, talking to her brother, talking to her. And only if she never gives me any grief, never disagrees with me. And everything's copacetic at this particular point. And she's really a chaste lady. I mean, she's a descendant of the snakes. But, at that time, the Nagas, they could change their forms. It's not that he married someone who looked like a snake. So she's with it. She's with him and she's very obedient. And one time, he doesn't wake up in time to do his sanja. And for a Brahmin, that's actually not so good. A Brahmin actually has to do the Sanja at particular times, just like we have our Gayatri mantras. And they have to be done at particular times. They can't be done like we chant our japa. Sometimes someone says, I have to finish all my japa and it's 11 o'clock at night. And I remember one devotee, he was like 250 rounds behind. And he said, now I have to do some japa purgatory. That's not the right attitude to have. Anyway, so, but the sanjas, the chanting of the japa, the chanting of the Gayatri mantras have to be done at a certain time of the day. You don't, Prabhupada actually said you don't make them up in the evening if you haven't done one during the day. So yeah, that's considered an offense to Gayatri Mata. So he doesn't wake up. He's sleeping, resting. And she wakes him up. So he says, dear, time to get up, sweetie. And because he's woken up, you ever experienced that someone wakes you up and you get angry? He gets he gets angry. He says, what? He said, I'm out of here. Go back home. Quick marriage. But the poor girl is pregnant. So the girl is pregnant and she says, I'm pregnant. Am I going to have a kid? And he's leaving, as she's leaving, or he's leaving. He says, Astika, there it will be. And that's the name of the kid. And that's the kid who later on in the Mahabharata saves all the snakes because he's a Brahmin. You understand? Even though he's the son of a Naga, because he's the son of a Brahmin, he's a Brahmin, and he comes to the Sarpa Yagya, snake sacrifice of Maharaj Janmajaya, and he comes and says to Maharaj Janmajaya, just like Vamanadev, Lord Vamanadev, said to Bali Maharaj, please stop the sacrifice, and Bali Maharaj had to listen to him because he was a Brahmin. Or not only stop the sacrifice, but give me all 3 steps of land. So he interfered with the sacrifice. So in the same way, Ashtika stopped the sacrifice of Maharaj Janmanjaya, and the snakes weren't killed, and particularly Takshika, the one who killed Maharaj Parikshit, wasn't killed. So anyway, so that's a story of how serious it is in terms of one's debts to one's forefathers, at least one's forefathers and demigods. And Prabhupada and other places mentions how many debts we have. Let's see, I'm going to go to that. There are a lot of quotes here. Oops. Actually, a lot of stuff. There's a purport written by Prabhupada's servants, which I'm not going to read right now, of that 11th canto verse. So there's a particular verse, another verse in the 11th canto that's important in this regard. 1129. Tavat karmani kurvita na nirvidyeta yavata matkata shavanadava shraddha yavana jayate. As long as one is not satiated by fruit of activity and has not awakened his taste for devotional service by hearing and chanting about the Supreme Lord, one has to act according to the regulative principles of Vedic injunctions. The conclusion is that one who is fully surrendered to the devotional service of the Supreme Lord is a first-class human being. In other words, we have to come to the point of fully surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that gives us the right, the adhikar, to just neglect all other responsibilities. So I'm balancing the whole thing. So it's not that one can irresponsibly neglect one's responsibility in society like this Jarakara was attempting to do. So once one becomes fully surrendered, one can do that. So one shouldn't apply this particular injunction prematurely. So as far as when one takes up devotional service and becomes a devotee, the benedictions that you get for your family members, those are mentioned by Srila Prabhupada in various places. In the first canto, 12th chapter, text 17, Prabhupada gives actually different numbers of family members that are benefited. Sometimes it says 100, sometimes 100 generations, sometimes 21 generations, but we're going to read some of these quotes. The family in which a Mahabhagavad takes his birth is fortunate because due to the birth of a first grade devotee, the members of the family, past, present, and future, up to 100 generations become liberated by the grace of the Lord out of respect for his beloved devotee. So that's an impetus for becoming a pure devotee, isn't it? You really could save everybody. Therefore, the highest benefit is done to one's family members simply by becoming an unalloyed devotee of the Lord. In the 7th canto, 10th chapter, text 18, is another verse that indicates this. In this particular case is 21. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Prahlad, O most pure, O great saintly person, your father has been purified along with 21 forefathers in your family. Because you were born in this family, the entire dynasty has been purified." And here Prabhupada really clarifies what this means. The word Tri Sapta Bhi means 7 multiplied by 3. In one's family, one can count back 4 or 5 generations to one's great-grandfather or even one's great-grandfather's father. But since the Lord mentions 21 forefathers, this indicates that the benediction expands to other families also. Before the present family in which one has taken birth, one must have been born in other families. Thus, when a Vaishnava takes birth in a family by the grace of the Lord, he purifies not only that family, but also the families of his previous births. It's pretty interesting, isn't it? Also the families of your previous births. And there's another impetus for taking up Krishna consciousness. So Sudama in this particular story is realizing this, that he's made his whole family and also purified the demigods and also purified his home. You know, because when someone executes pure devotional service, the home becomes the mind, the home, everything becomes as good as Vrindavan. So here's another quote. There's actually quite a few quotes that I looked up. This is from the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami by Lord Chaitanya. Although a devotee may have been born in a Chandala dog-eater family, so that's pretty low, but actually eating cows is worse. You know, in the West, we become abhorred. We actually become disgusted when thinking someone's eating dogs, but actually it's worse to eat cows. It's much more sinful, much more cruel. May have been born in a Chandala or dog-eater family. By devotional service, he can purify his whole family for 100 generations. And here's another explanation Prabhupada gave. Past and future. Wow. Whereas a proud Brahmana cannot even purify himself. Wow. Actually, here's another quote by Prabhupada. So many nice quotes. It really, I mean, it gives me an impetus to try to become Krishna conscious. Because it's not simply about me, it's about so many other people. You know, when you think about other people, I mean, this is a very important point, especially when one takes responsibility for other people, you know, maybe a temple president, GBC, or guru. It's a very heavy responsibility because your actions, of course, your actions give other people examples to follow, and your strictness or not being strict in Krishna consciousness can influence so many other people's spiritual lives. It's very heavy. I mean, really, devotees should realize that. Like, if you're a senior devotee, older devotee, you're like Lord Rishabhadev says, no one should become a father or a mother or a guru or worshipful personality unless they're capable of saving the dependents from the cycle of birth and death. So this should be an impetus for us to actually be very strict in Krishna consciousness, especially us older devotees. And for the younger devotees, your family members, But for us older devotees, or those of us who are examples, or supposed to be exemplars, we should be thinking, we're not just doing devotional service for ourselves. We're doing it for so many other people. I mean, I think like that. I come to the morning program, sometimes I'm tired and things like that, but I'm thinking, I'm doing this for others. It's others. I mean, this is the best charity work. I mean, just like you find Mother Teresa, she was doing so much charity work and everything like that. And I'm sure she had to overcome so many physical challenges in doing that because she was thinking in compassion of others. So this is really important. So let me give you more quotes because this is also very inspiring. In a Krishna book, Prabhupada says, on the other hand, if someone becomes a pure Vaishnava or devotee of the Lord, 10 generations of his family is 10 before his birth, and 10 generations after will be liberated. And the final quote I have is from the Mukunda Mala Stotra. This is from Prabhupada's commentary. Prabhupada only commented up to a certain number of verses in the Mukunda Mala Stotra, and Sasvaru Maharaj wrote the rest of the commentaries. But this is Prabhupada's commentary. I believe it's the 4th verse in the Mukunda Mala Stotra, Prabhupada's commentary. The Shastras state that a family in which a pure devotee is born is sanctified for 100 generations of ancestors and descendants. And listen to this. And the Shastras also state that every place within a radius of 100 miles from where a devotee is born becomes sanctified. 100 miles, radius. So you take, even Calcutta becomes sanctified. Although before it wasn't so much sanctified. Actually, Gorka showed us Babaji Maharaj would consider it a place of Kali. He wouldn't even go there to get his eyes fixed. He said, I'm not going there. And he became blind. If a devotee can sanctify the place and family of his birth so extraordinarily, then what to speak of how completely the Lord can sanctify the place and family in which he chooses to take his birth. So anyway, so these are some of the points of how by serving Krishna, of course, Sudam had Krishna come directly to his home. He got a chance to serve Krishna according to the system. So if we dedicate our lives to Krishna's service, serving under the jurisdiction or instructions of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, then everything becomes auspicious. So any questions or comments? I probably won't like it. Yeah. What? I made that point. Yeah. Yeah. I actually made that point. I said that in class if you were listening. Yeah, I made that point. It's fully Krishna conscious. So yeah, fully Krishna conscious. Prabhupada was asked one time, and I'll sort of deal with that one. How many pure devotees are there in the Krishna conscious? All my disciples are pure devotees. So in my mind, Brahmapranam Brahmahavya Brahmagno Brahmanohutam Brahma Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Sanadinam. By Prabhupada's mercy, if we remain strict with our, following the principles and chanting our rounds every day and doing our best to serve the Krishna consciousness movement and serve Prabhupada. Prabhupada is so merciful that, I know this verse applies. Nanyasinte antomam yajanak paripasate tesham nityaviyuktamam yogakshema vahamyaham. That for those who are dedicated like that to me, I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. So that is my faith in Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. All glory.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Maravindanalaya Taksham Marhamatam Samasitam Buddhasundaram Tandar Bhagom Vikamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Andani Asa Sakale Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Giram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Dala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami 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 Govindam Adipurusham
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Samaniti Namane Srimate Bhaktivedanta Namaste Saraswati Deve Guramani Pracharinde Nivase Shah Shanyavadeva Satchate Zacharane Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasade Gaurvatakvinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Srivasati Gaur Bhakta. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Agolokananurad, Agolokananurade. Jaya Radha Golokananda Radha Golokananda Radhe. Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Radhe Radhe. Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Sri Radhe. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravidakacharya also Tata Satashi Shima is divine grace by Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada.